King was his song leader, and there was a beer joint at the end of Main Street. And Dad had a 1931 A model coupe that he had converted into a pickup truck. He'd taken the rumble seat out. Some of you might be aware of that. And he got him some loudspeakers that he could put on the top of it. And I think he had 4 Chuck Wagon gang records. One Saturday afternoon, he was there and he told Brother Jimmy, he says, go into the beer joint there and tell everybody that wants to go to heaven to come out here and stand on the sidewalk with me. So Brother Jimmy went in, and pretty soon everybody came out except the one old man sitting back there. Daddy went in and he says, you're in here, don't you want to go to heaven? Man says, yes. He said, well, why don't you come out here? He says, well, I thought you was getting up a load right now. We used to let our children, we've got a boy and a girl, go up and spend the summer with my dad and mother. And as it turned out, Moselle is an artist. She is involved in the fine arts. I'm more of an educator, scientist type. My daughter took after me, and our son took after Moselle. He is it's true, he makes his living playing the trombone. He's a professional jazz trombone player, arranger, composer, and teaches at Georgia State and Kennesaw State. Moselle, when he started taking piano, she said he's got to take until the 12th grade once he started, and the piano teacher would give him classical pieces that he would play up until recital time. And when he got up on recital, whatever she gave him, he would just jazz them up and play it. So finally she just gave him jazz, and that's all that happened. He had this ability from the time he was a small child. And there was a time that Dad wanted him to sing. He was maybe 6 or 7 years old. And Dad said, I want you to sing Amazing Grace this coming Sunday. Moselle and I came up to be with him, and they went over, Amazing Grace. And he practiced and practiced. Wes figured out that the words to Amazing Grace could be sung by the entrance to his favorite TV station, Gilligan's Island. So when he got up there, he said, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound, saves a wretch like me. Once was lost, but now I'm found. Blind, but now I see. Yes, blind, but now I see. Daddy came rushing down and he said, when we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun.
No joke.
What?
No joke? You have a joke.
I told you it was all true. Yes. He also found, he didn't do it, that you can sing Amazing Grace by Ghost Riders in the Sky. Remember? An old cowpoke went riding out one dark Amazing Grace. You can do that. And Wes said, well, at least I didn't do that. Wes said, you can even sing it to the House of the Rising Sun. Dad didn't even know what that was. Mama told us, she said, you know what else Wes did? She said, what you gonna do today? And he says, I'm gonna play church with the cat. And she said, well, that's good. You know, that's good practice. All of a sudden she heard a screech and the cat came through the house, wet as it could be, and it hid under the bed. She said, what'd you do? And he says, I baptized the cat. She says, don't you know cats don't like water? He said it should have thought about it before he joined my church. My dad, and again, this is more or less a true story, not quite, but it's more or less. After prayer meeting one night, and by this time I was 15 years old or so, and the parsonage was in an old rambling farmhouse, and my bedroom was in the front. There was a front door there, and there was a living room, and my bedroom, and then the middle of the house there was what we call a setting room. That's where the Duratherm coal oil heater was. So about 9:30 or so, I was still studying because I was studious, and there was a knock on our door. And I got up, I still had my clothes on, and went, and there was a couple from our church in their early 30s, Elmer and Lilybell, and they said, Dave, we need to talk to Preacher Jack. And I said, well, wait just a minute, I think they in bed, they had to get some clothes on, so I went back and I said, Elmer and Lilybell are here and they need to talk to y'all. So Mama put on her Chanel bathrobe, and Daddy put on some clothes and went in there. And Elmer says, Preacher, we were having our family devotion. Remember, we've been married about 10 years. And we've been trying to have a baby, and we have not succeeded. And all of a sudden, just like a bolt of lightning, it hit us that said, if you go down to the Preacher Jack's house, and if he will anoint you with oil, perhaps the Lord would see fit for us to have a child. And Daddy looked and said, well, that's all well and good, except the anointing oil is up at the church, and it's locked up, and it's late. He said, David, look around and see if you can find some kind of oil. And I looked through the house, and I came back and I said, Daddy, the only oil I found was some burnt motor oil that you put sulfur in to cure mange on the dog. And he said, that won't work. And Mama said, go in there where my Singer sewing machine is, and there's a little drawer there. And in the right-hand corner, you'll find some 3-in-1 oil. I said, okay, I did, and brought it back. Dad said, okay. So he got them to hold their hands out. He put a drop on each hand. He anointed both of them head. We had a prayer, and they went home. About 3 months later, Elmer called and said, you won't believe it. Said, Lilybell is with child. We did not use the word pregnant. And as time went on, he called again, and he said, Lilybell is in the hospital. She is going to deliver. I want y'all to come down. So we came down. After a while, the doctor came out and said, Elmer, said, you've got a boy. I've got to go back and see about your wife. So he came back in a little while later and says, you know what, you've got another boy. And a little later he came back and says, you've got a girl. And my dad said, Elmer, I just hope that 3-in-1 oil that I anointed you with had nothing to do with this. Elmer said, I'm just glad you didn't use WD-40.